Welcome, welcome, welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 427 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, not only ask you to agree with me, I'm asking you to hear me out. You know, the famous phrase is, a person's actions will tell you more than anything their words will say. If you want to know how someone feels about someone, if you want to know where you stand with someone, just look at their actions. Their actions will show you what you need to know. And it's not just with people, it's with anything. You can't hide your actions. They are going to come to the light. And if you look hard enough, every action will tell you exactly how you feel about the situation. You see, I find myself at a crossroads right now. I find myself at a crossroads because, in one hand, I'm happy that the NCAA came to a multi-billion-dollar agreement that allows schools to pay athletes directly. I have been here championing the thought of players getting paid for their services. I think it's just like these players make entities, make institutions, make universities, make colleges so much money. I think it is criminally, let's say, disheartening how it took this long for the NCAA to allow students to get paid. It's like when you look at some of these top tier schools, right? And you see just how much money an Alabama generates. You see how much money a North Carolina generates, a Duke generates, a UCLA, USC. When you look at that, just look how much is generated through sports. That is the direct correlation of how important college sports is to these schools. And the fact that it took this long for athletes to get paid. Now, yes, this isn't the first time they did get the deal for them to get paid by their name, image, and likeness happened probably 2-3 years ago. But this is the first time where schools now can pay these players. So in that sense, I am happy, and I do like the fact that the NCAA is finally understanding that, hey, most of this money that comes to the NCAA, most of the money that comes to these colleges is directly from athletics. So if you have a big name student, if you have a big name athlete like a Zion Williamson, like a Tim Tebow, like a Jimmy Fredette, like a Caitlin Clark, and do you know how much money Caitlin Clark generated for Iowa? And the fact that before a few years ago, she would not be getting paid. I mean, Tim Tebow didn't get paid. Reggie Bush, who we just talked about recently for getting his Heisman back, he didn't get paid. Well, legally. So I just think I'm excited and I'm happy that these athletes are finally the schools can now pay the athletes. They don't have to go through NIL deals, because there's a lot of athletes in a lot of these NIL deals that they don't want to pay what they should. You know, they don't want to pay. They have to set the obviously parameters of what the pay is going to be. So now when you look at these schools, players that may not have the recognition, may not have the name to get a large NIL deal can now get it from the school. So in that sense, I am happy. And in that sense, I'm elated to see that these players, for lack of it, I know they don't like to use this term because it just, I guess to them, it's just a slap in the face or whatever it's a slap in the face to the university or college or whatever. But essentially what these student athletes is employees. And I say that because, again, how much money they generate for the school. They generate so much. If it was, I'm not saying that the schools will go under. I'm not saying that, UNC would not be a highly touted university if it wasn't for their basketball. But what I'm saying is their basketball program makes so much money for the school, it would take a major hit. Same as Alabama in football. Same as most of the SEC schools in football. If Georgia didn't have the football, if Alabama didn't have football, I'm not saying that the schools would go under, but they would take huge hits. So in that sense, most of these student athletes, whether you want to call it or not, are employees. And the fact that they can get paid like that, I'm happy. I understand that people are like, well, what about the other students? Yeah, well, the other students can go out and work. Other students that don't play sports, they can have a job. That's something that they can still find a way to get money. That's what student athletes were not able to do, at least until the NIL deals and until now this agreement that the NCAA has with the schools. So in that sense, I'm happy. In that sense, I'm elated. But the reason why I said I'm at a crossroads, and the reason why I said that I'm a little conflicted by how I feel. I started this episode with schools or not schools. People are going to show you exactly how they feel about you through their actions. The NCAA understands, and this is going to sound harsh. Trust me, I know. But sometimes the truth is harsh. That's not true. Sometimes the truth is always the truth. How you take it is the harshness or not, But the NCAA understands what schools makes them the most money. And as much as fans might enjoy it, as much as the March Madness would benefit from it, and the NCAA does not like parity, because parity makes them less money than dominance, if you really think about it. You see, but this deal is the reason why I said I'm conflicted is because this deal, who does this deal help the most? Well, yes, in one hand, it helps the student athlete. But in the other hand, it also helps the major schools, the big schools, the schools that make the NCAA the most money. And how does that happen? Just look at what we've seen these last few years from March Madness. When you see Forum, when you see VCU, when you see Florida Atlantic, when you see these smaller schools making deep runs, that's because they're able to keep players and they're able to recruit. And recruiting was a lot easier for the smaller schools now with NIL deals, because you can partner NIL deals with scholarships. So it's like, if I can get a I don't know, let's say Nike NIL deal and still go to Florida Atlantic instead of having to go to University of Florida, then I might as well go to Florida Atlantic, see what I can do. I have more time to play. I have more opportunity to put my best foot forward. That's what it was doing. Well, now you're competing with Florida Atlantic is now yet again competing with an Alabama, competing with a Florida, competing with a Georgia. And because Alabama, Georgia, Florida, let's say Mississippi State, they're able to pay more money on top of NIL deals, the smaller schools are going to lose every single time. So you're not going to get the Cinderella stories that we like to see. But as fans, we may like to see it. But when you talk about pockets, when you talk about money, and when you talk about what the NCAA, what they thrive off of, it's dominance. Alabama makes more money for the NCAA with them being dominant when they had Nick Saban and all the national championships. They make them more money than, I don't know, let's say Florida Gulf Coast. Or if you want to go to the basketball, Kentucky North Carolina, Duke, Michigan, they make more money for the NCAA and for them being dominant than, let's say, Florida Atlantic, let's say VCU, let's see Fordham, let's say St. August, St. Mary's. So what I'm saying is, what I think people have to understand, and what I hope that people do not forget, is all these entities, all these schools, the NCAA, it's still a business, and nothing. as much as it sucks, it's true. Nothing that they do, not one decision they do, is not for the betterment of them. So when people are praising the NCAA, which in certain aspects, they do deserve the praise for allowing the students to finally get paid, allowing the schools to pay the students. So in that sense, they should be applauded. Even though it took longer than it should have, at least it got here. At least change has come. So in that sense, yes. But again, the NCAA, these schools, they're never going to do anything for the better. That does not, let's say, they will never do anything that doesn't empower the schools, that doesn't empower their program, their organization. Because at the end of the day, all these schools and the NCAA as a whole is a business. So they understand, okay, we're losing recruits. Or these top schools are losing recruits to smaller schools, which in that case, they're not as dominant as they used to be. So viewership and attendance is lower because they haven't been dominant in a while. These dominant schools are not. Hell, Georgia didn't even win the national championship. Georgia didn't even make. That hurt the NCAA money-wise. Georgia didn't even make the Final Four. Now, yes, obviously a big school in Michigan won the national championship, but who do you think would have made the NCAA more money? Michigan winning? Or let's say Alabama, let's say Georgia, let's say Clemson. I'm not saying that those are the only teams that benefit from this new deal, but what I'm saying is the bigger schools, the national powerhouses, benefit more than the smaller schools. Don't get it twisted. We as fans like parity. But when we talk about dollars, when we talk about businesses, when we talk about what generates the most, trust and believe. The dominance, dynasties, big programs like a Alabama, like a Clemson, like a UCLA, that's what makes the NCAA happy. That's what makes the NCAA more money, and that is why you're seeing this deal being made. So don't be surprised the next few years you see a school that is just leaps and bounds dominant from the others, and how it's been looking like. Some of these top schools getting the top recruits, getting the top transfers, because they can afford it now that these schools are able to pay, for their services. So on one hand, shout out to the NCAA, shout out to the students. On the other hand, I see what you're doing. And hey, I get it. Let's move forward. Now, they say you're not supposed to take anything out of the first one or two games of a series. They say you cannot lose a series in the first one or two games, which is true. If you technically look at it, you cannot lose a series in the first two games because you essentially have to win 4 of them. And while I'm recording this, the Timberwolves and Minnesota have not played Game 2. Game 2 is going to be tonight. You guys are getting this episode tomorrow on Saturday. So I don't know. I'm going to talk about them briefly after this, but I don't know exactly what has happened. But what happened in game 1 in that series and what's happening in the Boston Pacers series, at least for game 1 and 2, are kind of similar. If you want to know how I feel about who I think is going to win both conference finals, go check out last episode. You can go check out the reels that I just posted, or I posted yesterday. That'll tell you who that I went in depth about who I think is going to win and why I think they're going to win. So I'm not going to bore you in continuing to emphasize who I think is going to win both conference finals. But in game 1 of the Boston Pacers series, I think that game illustrated exactly why, in some instances, I do not agree with the statement that you can't lose a series in the first 2 games. As we speak, Boston is up 2-0 in the series. In the series, and as we speak, you can argue that the Pacers have been. I'm not going to say the better team. I'm not going to disrespect the Celtics for what we've seen, but the gap has not been as wide as I previously thought it would, or I previously thought it was. But here's the thing, right? The thing is, when you're playing a better team, when you're playing a team that as a whole is projected to be better than you, is projected to beat you, when you're playing a team that has less wiggle room of error because they're better, you have to capitalize on situations. You have to capitalize on the moments that favor you, because those moments do not come as often as it does for a better team. You see, a team that is good, right? A team that is better than you may be able to go down 4, 5, 6, maybe even 10 points and not get worried, don't sweat it at all, because they're better. They're able to manifest more points more than the other team. I'm not saying they want to go down or want to be in a deficit, but they can overcome a deficit better than a team that may not be as talented. So when the less talented team, or the team that isn't projected to win, has opportunities to seize moments, you have to seize them, because there's a chance that they do not come back. And the Pacers had every single opportunity to win game 1. The Pacers had every single chance to steal game 1. Now, I clearly said that the Pacers were going to win. I mean, the Celtics were going to win in 6. So the Pacers had to get wins somewhere. But the way the Pacers lost game 1 in my opinion, will dictate the entire series. Not to mention the fact that game 2, Tyrese Halliburton went out with a sore leg, I believe. So this is yet another team that the Boston Celtics don't have to play fully healthy. I'm not saying I don't think I hope, let's say, Tyrese Halliburton doesn't miss any time as far as miss total games. Because if Tyrese Halliburton misses games, the Pacers have absolutely no shot of doing anything. If Tyrese Halliburton doesn't play, and we already know Tyrese Halliburton is not playing at 100%. That we know. That's clear as day. But if he is not able to go, every single game that Tyrese Halliburton does not play is a game that the Celtics are going to win. I know that you know how we keep saying that Kristaps Porzingis is important to the Celtics. Well, take his importance to the Celtics and multiply that by 1,000. And that is how important Tyrese Halliburton is to the Pacers. But let's get back to game one. Because game one is where I want to focus on the most. And why I think game one turned this from Celtics in 6 to possibly Celtics in 4. I'm not shocked that game 2 went the way it went, meaning the Celtics won pretty handedly in game 2. Because when you lose a game like the Pacers lost in game 1, it's very hard psychologically, it's very hard emotionally, it's very hard physically to come back from that. Everything in that game 1 spelled win for the Pacers. Now, again, I'm not saying that the Pacers would have ultimately beat the Celtics in the series, but morale changes, emotions change, confidence grows when you beat the team that everyone has going to the finals. You beat them at their crib game 1, especially when no one expected you to win. And when I tell you, as a fan watching, I don't think I've ever seen a team lose the way that the Pacers lost. I think they had 5 turnovers in the last minute and a half. There was so many. What people kind of forget is basketball is a basketball game is a series of moments, and all those moments compile to get you what you see. And all those moments can build up to get to whoever wins the game. Again, a moment in the first quarter can't win you a game, but it can most definitely spur you losing the game. And the Pacers are already a high turnover team. The way how fast they move, the way their offense is constructed, they turn the ball over a lot. They make a lot of mistakes. And that's yet another reason why a lot of people, let me speak for myself. That's yet another reason why I do not have the Pacers winning this series. I think there's too many mistakes that the Pacers make. Yes, they're a really good team. And yes, if it was anyone else, I could see the Pacers winning the series. Because while they make a lot of mistakes, there's a lot of good that comes out of it. There's a lot of their offense is fast paced. They have Pascal Siakam, they have Tyrese Halliburton, they have Miles Turner. They have good pieces. So those mistakes, while they make them, they make more positive plays than mistakes at times. Most of the time, let's say. The times where their mistakes overcome their good plays, those are the games they lose. But if you look on paper, that's another reason why I think game 1 kind of sealed this series. If you look on paper, everything about that game should have gone the Pacers' way outside of the turnovers. They were shooting lights out from 3. Miles Turner was having the game of his life. Pascal was having the game of his life. Tyrese Halliburton was shooting the ball like he is Steph Curry. Yet and still, like I said before, when a team that is not expected to win, when a team that in all metrics are worse than the team that they're going against, when you have opportunities to seize the moment, when you have opportunities to seize the day, when you have opportunities to win, you have to grab them. Because those opportunities are going to come at a much less rate than they would for the Celtics. Because the Celtics have, as you saw in game 2, right? The Celtics have 2 players right now, because Kristaps Porzingis is still hurt. Right? The Celtics have 2 players that can go off for 40. The Celtics have 2 players that you can say are all NBA players. We're going to talk about the all NBA team a little later. But the Celtics have 2 players that you can call perennial all-stars. Meaning they have 2 players that they understand what it is, and they're good enough to put the team on their back and carry them. Yo, Jaylen Brown, who is not their best player, Jaylen Brown had 40 in game 2. What I'm saying is this. No. Game 1 and game 2 technically doesn't lose you a series or doesn't dictate a series. And it always says a series isn't a series until the away team wins. Okay. But I guess the overarching theme is, if you have an opportunity, if there's a window of success that is open for you, which in all accounts probably shouldn't be open for you, you have to take it. Because if not, they may not come back. And now, I'm looking, now if you look at this Pacers team, everything that we thought about them is starting to come to fruition outside of, and I hope that is just game 2. But if Tyrese Halliburton doesn't play, it is, to me, it's already curtains if he does, because the Celtics are just a better team. But it's for damn sure curtains if Tyrese Halliburton is unable to go. Any minute Tyrese Halliburton is not playing is a minute that the Celtics have an advantage. Let's just say that. And I know that it sounds harsh, but it's true. Again, I'm just being honest. It is true. The Pacers are not even close to where the Celtics are. And the Pacers are a good team, but the Celtics are just another level. So the way that you lose game 1, to me, shows it's going to be tough. 5 turnovers in like a minute is crazy. Jaylen Brown hitting a 3-point shot with Pascal Siakam not only not having the opportunity to foul him because the play was so fast, but you don't even get your hands up to contest. You put your hands down, which gives Jaylen Brown, even though it's still a tough shot, it gives Jaylen Brown a clear line of sight at the rim. Instead of putting your hands up, contesting, and then essentially winning the game by 2 if he misses, and hopefully you get a rebound. Because the Pacers were doing everything right. They were attacking Al Horford every single chance they had, and it was working. But they were also turning the ball over a bunch. At giving the Pacers, because again, another thing, man, like everything that you could, like, man, look. Everything was going your way, Indiana. Jason Tatum was having a bad game until he wasn't. Drew Holiday was having a bad game until he wasn't. Jaylen Brown was having a bad game until he wasn't. You were attacking who you wanted to attack on defense until you just started turning the ball over. Tyrese Halliburton was shooting like Game 6 Clay. I guess we'll see Game 3. But how it's just losing the way that the Pacers lost in Game 1 is very tough to come back. And it's kind of deflating to a team that I think they understand that they're the underdogs in this. In fact, I think Rick Carlisle, who's the coach of the Pacers, even said it. He was like, all the pressure's on them. We have no pressure because nobody expects us to win. So, we'll see. Moving over to the Timberwolves and the Mavericks series, there's a different feeling that I have attached to that game one. And again, game two is tonight, so I don't know exactly what has happened. So I'm not going to predict anything. I'm just going to talk about what I've seen. Kyrie Irving said it. Now, this is someone that has been in several game sevens. This is someone that won us. I think he's undefeated in closeout games. So he understands the emotion. He understands the pressure. He understands the energy that goes into game sevens, especially game sevens when you're the away team. But I saw a Timberwolves team that I have not seen this entire playoffs. And that was tired. Now, I will give credit to where credit is due. A lot of, Anthony Edwards being tired was because they had him guarding Luka Doncic. They had him guarding Kyrie Irving. And trust and believe, and no offense to them, but Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving is not Jamal Murray and KCP. All great players, but there's levels when we talk about offensive intensity. There's levels when we talk about skill. Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, skill-wise, is on another level than Jamal Murray and KCP. But Anthony Edwards looked tired. And Mike Conley looked tired. And Karl Anthony Towns looked tired. There's a lot of emotion that you have to put into to win a game seven. And on top of that, we forget, or how quickly is forgotten, that the Timberwolves were down 20 points in the second half, meaning they had to exert so much energy just to get back into the game that it's very hard to turn right back around and prepare for another team and essentially win. Now, it sounds like I'm caping. I'm not. I think the Dallas Mavericks played their hand to perfection. While, yes, I do think that, PJ Washington could have been a little better. I think Kyrie Irving could have been a little better. But he was aggressive, which you kind of knew that once Anthony Edwards preferably called him out, sort of. You knew Kyrie Irving was going to be aggressive. You knew Luka and Kyrie were going to get theirs. Luka always is aggressive, but Kyrie, yeah. Not to mention, Kyrie Irving is the only player on this team that has experienced the championship. So he knows the focus. He knows the energy that goes into winning. But there was a lot of things that I liked about both teams. Again, I like the fact of the Mavericks were down big in this game as well. Jaden McDaniels was having the game of his life when we talk about shooting a three. Going into this series, Jaden McDaniels has not been the greatest of shooters in his career. So the fact that he was looking like Dame is crazy. So I did like the emergence of Jaden McDaniels and his three-point shot. I don't think that that's sustainable because a lot of his shots were wide open. But that is probably scouting. If you're going to leave anybody open from three on Minnesota, it is Rudy Gobert, number one, Jaden McDaniels, number two. And he was just letting it fly. I like how the Mavericks, Luka, he was not doing anything until the second half. Kyrie Irving was being aggressive while he wasn't making a lot until the second half. The second half, Dallas just put on a masterclass of offense. And this, I talked about this with Rudy Gobert in the Denver series and how, yes, he's a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. Yes, he's a great defender as far as protecting the rim. But when you're playing against, let's say this, I thought Rudy Gobert's defense was going to be an advantage for this series because you're not playing against a Nikola Jokic. You're playing against Daniel Gafford. You're playing against Derek Lively, who are very good offensive, offensive threats, rebounders, but they're not on the same level as Nikola Jokic. And they can't shoot the ball like at all outside of the paint. So I thought that Rudy Gobert had an advantage. But I do have to give credit where credit is due. Dallas understood, we're going to put Rudy Gobert in every single pick and roll situation to have to get them to switch. So any single time Rudy Gobert was on a shooter, whether that was Kyrie, whether that was Luka, whether that was PJ Washington, whether that was Derek Jones, whether that was Tim Hardaway Jr., anytime Rudy Gobert got switched onto anyone that had an ounce of shooting, the ball went up. So essentially, Rudy Gobert became a liability for the Timberwolves, which is why you saw a lot of slow-mo. Because while he's not the defender that Rudy Gobert is at the rim, he is a better on-ball defender because he has horizontal quickness. Game one, I'm not going to take much out of game one as far outside of I think that this game or this series is going to be won by whoever makes whoever makes the smart, and whoever makes the timely adjustments. And which adjustments helps the team more. Because while the Minnesota Timberwolves have a defensive advantage, seeing as though they're the number one defense in the league, because of just the sheer amount of shooters that the Dallas Mavericks can trot out there, they have an offensive advantage. And as we've seen, if Anthony Edwards isn't hitting, if Karl-Anthony Towns isn't hitting, shouts out to Jaden McDaniels for his game one performance, but I just don't see that happening again. Or I don't see that happening as a regularity. I just see it as more of a game or two where he hits like that. Maybe just one. And honestly, I think that they're going to make a conscious... I think he's going to have an opportunity to hit like that because I don't think they're going to guard him like that. But, I just think that emotionally, physically, the Timberwolves were spent after game one or game 7. So I think we're going to see a different Timberwolves. I think we're going to see a lot in game 2. Again, game 2 happened tonight. I don't know what's going to happen. So this part obviously is going to seem outdated or is going to be outdated. But game 1 was kind of crazy. Game 1, I will say shout out for, unlike the Pacers, the window of opportunity was there for the Mavericks. And they seized it. So, shouts out to them. Let's move forward. I talked about it briefly. This is probably going to be a quick episode. The All-NBA teams were announced. And there were some that I did mine before they came out, probably a couple weeks before they came out. There were some that I had correct. There were some that I predicted right. And there were some that I didn't. And I'm not saying that my thing was law. My thing should have been no. I think there was, this year more than ever, there were a multitude of players that should have made it. that didn't, and there was a multitude of players that should have made it that did. So shouts out to everyone that made it. And while I'm talking about the All-NBA team, this part right here is kind of more specific to the All-Defensive team. When the NBA announced that, I guess starting this year, the awards were going to be positionless, meaning it doesn't matter the position that you are. If you're the best at whatever the category is, you have a good shot of being on the team. When they announced that, I said, oh, okay. I think that gives them an opportunity to get it right. That allows the NBA to say, hey, it doesn't matter if you're a guard. It doesn't matter if you're big. If you deserve to be on the All-NBA first team, if you deserve to be on the All-Rookie team, if you deserve to be on the All-Defensive team, you're going to be on it. And while I appreciate that and I love that, what I hope is, let me say this, what I hope is, and what happened this year to me was the fear that I have. My fear is that now that it's gone positionless, people get lazy. Voters get lazy. And what I mean by that is you start putting people in because of name or because they have more of a avalanche of press, an avalanche of popularity, so they get scooted in more than others. You saw that, to me, clear as day in the all-defensive teams. The all-defensive first team is Bam Adebayo, Anthony Davis, Rudy Gobert, Herb Jones, and Victor Wembanyama. All of which are incredible defenders. All of which deserve to be on an all-defensive team. But do you see an issue with that first team? I'll read it to you again. Bam Adebayo, Anthony Davis, Rudy Gobert, Herb Jones, Victor Wembanyama. Do you see the commonality of this team? For the people that don't, they're all bigs. There is not a guard in sight. And to me, when you're talking about defense, bigs kind of get a lack of a better term, a pack-a-punch. For people that play Call of Duty, if you don't know what pack-a-punch is, it's like when you play zombies. There's a section where you can put whatever gun that you have, you can put it in a pack-a-punch. You can put it in like a lottery type situation, and you can get a stronger gun. You can get a better gun. It's pretty much an enhancement for the gun. Well, when you look at bigs, they already have an advantage as far as rim protecting. They already have an advantage. You're already close to the rim. You're already taller than guards. So you have an advantage of playing defense. I'm not saying that, just because you're big, you're a great defender. That's obviously not true if you want to look at Nikola Jokic. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of advantages, physical advantages that bigs have that guards don't. And I think that it was so lazy for the NBA to put all bigs on the first team. To me, it's just, again, I love the fact that the NBA is going to positionless because to me, that allows players that may deserve to be on the first team, may deserve to be on the second team, they get that opportunity. They just don't have to get, brought down because there's already 2 guard slots. Or there's already 2 big slots. But I just do not want this award to get lazy. And to me, that was lazy. Again, shouts out to every single person that was on the all-defensive team. Every single one. But you're telling me that Bam Adebayo, who deserved to be on the defensive team, had a better defensive year than Jaden McDaniels, who was on the second team? You're telling me that Anthony Davis, who had a really good defensive year, had a better defensive year than, let's say, Alex Caruso? Or that's another thing. The second team was Alex Caruso, Drew Holiday, Jaden McDaniels, Jalen Suggs, and Derek White. You know what they all have in common? They're guards. So what they essentially did was all first team were bigs, all second team is guards. To me, that can't be, because especially when you're talking about money and especially when you're talking about incentives, some of these players have incentives to be all NBA or all defensive first teams. And what this is showing you is if you're not a big, I don't know, bro. I don't know. I just do not want this decision process to get lazy, and that's what it seems like it did. Again, and it also, I know it sounds like I'm hating, and I know it sounds like I'm not happy for everyone that won. I think that Bam, Anthony Davis, Rudy Gobert, Herb Jones, Victor Wembanyama, all incredible defenders and deserve to be on an all defensive team. But I just don't want it to get every year you look in all first teams is just bigs. Because, again, they have a decisive advantage playing defense than a guard. Not to mention the fact of the best players in the leagues or let's say the toughest guards in the league are usually guards. Like, think about it. One night, think about this 5-game stretch, right? One night, Alex Caruso, your matchup is Steph Curry. Then the next night, your matchup is Kyrie Irving. Then the next night, your matchup would be Damian Lillard. Then your matchup could be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Then your matchup can be Devin Booker. Do you understand? And then if you want to go back to that, let's look at Rudy Gobert. And I don't want to single you out, but it is what it is. In that same matchup, right? In those same matchups, Rudy Gobert would have to go against who? Kevon Looney. Then he have to go against Derek Lively or Daniel Gafford. Then you have to go against Brook Lopez, who was good. Then you'd have to go against Chet Holmgren, who was good. Then you'd have to go against, who did I say? Nurkic. So who do you think is tougher? Steph Curry or Kevon Looney? Who do you think is tougher? Kyrie Irving or Derek Lively? Who do you think is tougher to guard? That's where. Who do you think is tougher to guard? Damian Lillard or Brook Lopez? Who do you think is tougher to guard? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Chet Holmgren? Who do you think is tougher to guard? Devin Booker or Yusuf Nurkic? Again, I'm not taking away from any of the bigs. But let's be fair about this. Let's not be lazy. That's the only issue that I have. Positionless awards allows laziness. Because it's easy to just have 5 bigs. And to add on to that, the All-NBA teams were selected. And there wasn't much of an uproar. There wasn't much people saying X player got snubbed, X player didn't deserve to be on it. There wasn't much of that this year. There was some of that, and that's what we're going to talk about. But there wasn't much of it. Because as much as I just beat the head of the NBA in, they did right, in my opinion, for the All-NBA teams. I'm not saying that they had all of them correct, but I do think that the All-NBA teams were fairly correct. I mean, the first team you had Giannis, Luka, Shea, Jason Tatum and Nikola Jokic, those last year, or at least this year, were the best 5 players. Second team, you had Jalen Brunson, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Anthony Edwards, and Kawhi Leonard. We're going to talk about Kawhi in a second. In the third team, you had Devin Booker, Steph Curry, Tyrese Halliburton, LeBron James, and Domantas Sabonis. Not mad at anybody. I think everyone that made these teams were deserving. The conversation was centered around Kawhi Leonard and Jaylen Brown. Now, before I did the research for this episode, I was on the whole, Jaylen Brown really got snubbed. There's no way that you can look at what Jaylen Brown did compared to a compared to a Kawhi Leonard, compared to an Anthony Davis, and not put Jaylen Brown on an NBA team. I had Jaylen Brown, I believe, on the All-NBA second or third team. I don't remember. But I thought that Jaylen Brown deserved to be an All-NBA team. And if you were going to take a player off, it would either be Anthony Davis or Kawhi Leonard. I was on that side until I did the research for this episode. And I'm here to say how wrong I was even before I put the take out. Which is fine. I have absolutely no problem admitting when I'm wrong to things. And I was wrong about Jaylen Brown, Kawhi Leonard. Now, do not get me wrong. Jaylen Brown and Kawhi Leonard both had fantastic seasons. I mean, Kawhi Leonard finished averaging pretty much 24 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and was shooting 53% from the field. When Jaylen Brown averaged 23 points a game, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and shooting 50% pretty much from the field. All very, very close in number. So in my opinion, I had to ask myself, they're really close in number as far as averages this year. Jaylen Brown playing on a team that is the number 1 team in the East, while Kawhi Leonard was playing on a team that finished, I think, 4th or 5th. I think 4th. 4th in the league. In the West, I'm sorry. So, how did Kawhi Leonard get the nod over Jaylen Brown? Yes, Kawhi Leonard is averaging just 1 point better. Yes, he's shooting better. His numbers are just a tad bit better than Jaylen Brown. So how did he get considered for the second team and Jaylen Brown didn't make a team? And then it hit me. I know exactly why Kawhi Leonard is not, or is on the NBA second team and Jaylen Brown is not on the team. Now, yes, I do think Jaylen Brown deserved to be on the All-NBA team. He was that good. He deserved to do it. But what is the one thing, and now that I'm sitting here really thinking about it, that's the same. If I'm right, give me a second. I have to look something up for a second, because if I'm right about this, I know exactly why. Yep. What has been Anthony Davis and Kawhi Leonard's biggest flaw? Their availability. We knock Kawhi Leonard. We knock Anthony Davis because, Anthony Davis has the nickname of street clothes. We knock them for being injured at very important times of their team's journey in the season. Usually, Anthony Davis is hurt a bunch of times in the regular season, which has him miss a bunch of games. And usually, Kawhi Leonard is also the same. Now, it's unfortunate that Kawhi Leonard was essentially hurt in the playoffs, but this is a regular season award. But that's why. The reason why Kawhi Leonard and Anthony Davis both made the All-NBA teams over Jaylen Brown is because they overcame, at least this regular season, they overcame the one thing that held them back every single year. The one thing that was a negative point to their greatness stature, they overcame, and that was the games played. Kawhi Leonard played 68 games this year. Now, I know that there's 81 game or 82 games, and I understand that, there's still games missed, but that is the most games. In fact, that is the most games Kawhi Leonard has played since 2016-17. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, that is the most games. In fact, that is the first time he's played over 60 or more games since 2018-19. Anthony Davis played 76 games. To put that into perspective, give me a second. That is the most games. Anthony Davis has not played over 60 games since 2019-20. The only thing there is not their skill, was not their talent. The only thing that was holding back both Anthony Davis and Kawhi Leonard was availability. And the fact that they were available for majority of this season. And yes, I understand Jaylen Brown was available for most of the season. He played 70 games. But if you're going to line all three up, you're going to line up Jaylen Brown, you're going to line up Kawhi Leonard, you're going to line up Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis and Kawhi Leonard are better players. The only thing that Jaylen Brown had over them was he was available. And he played for a team. He played on a team that is the number one in the East and number one essentially in the NBA. But Anthony Davis and Kawhi Leonard is going to win that ranking battle every single time over Jaylen Brown because they're better players. The only thing that Jaylen Brown had over them was he played more. Well, the fact that he didn't play drastically more than both of them is why he is not on an All-NBA team and they are. Because outside of that, I mean, there is no one. I think Devin Booker, even though they may not have finished where they wanted to, Devin Booker had a great season. Steph had a great season, even though obviously the Warriors didn't finish where they wanted to. Tyrese Halliburton was incredible. I don't think maybe LeBron, maybe. But I don't think that there's anybody else that Jaylen Brown would have superseded to get on this team. And don't get me wrong, I think Jaylen Brown had a fantastic season. And I think that if they're going to win a championship this year, which they should, he is going to play a major part of that. But when we heard Jaylen Brown did not make the All-NBA team and we saw that Anthony Davis and Kawhi Leonard made the All-NBA second team, people were like, how? And I was like that as well, like, how? But then when you stack all three up, they win in every single category outside of games played most of the year. Well, this is the first year they've beat Jaylen Brown in pretty much every category. So they deserve to be it. No offense to him, but yeah. And lastly, before we go, we have the unpopular topic of the day. And I'm going to make this very short. You know, you can always tell, and I've talked about this before, which is why I'm going to make this short. You can always tell a poverty franchise looks like something. It's very hard to hide poverty when we talk about sports. It's very it just permeates throughout the entire team. whether we talk about decision making from the owner slash GM, whether we talk about the coaches they hire, whether we talk about the free agents, whether we talk about how they do in the draft, whether we talk about, how they stack up to other teams. It's very evident to look at a poverty franchise. And as we've talked about before, it's tough because sometimes poverty franchises don't know that they're poverty franchise. They don't know how to overcome that. JB Bickerstaff, who now was the coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, got fired. The GM, owner, they didn't like the direction that this team was going. They didn't like the fact that they didn't make a deep playoff run again this year. They just didn't like what they were seeing out of this Cleveland Cavaliers team. And the only thing I'll say to that is, okay, well, what did you expect to happen? I guess if you want to look at the coaching staff and you want to blame the coaching staff for the lack of development and the lack of improvement from Darius Garland, from Evan Mobley, then I get that. Okay. If you want to put that solely on the coaching staff, cool. You can do that. I'm not mad at that. As a coaching staff, you have to try to get the best out of your players. And as we've seen from Darius Garland and Evan Mobley, they have not improved the way that we thought they would improve. If you want to fire him because they didn't essentially make it out the first or second round, and a lot of the years he was the coach, they didn't even make the playoffs. Okay, cool. But did you really that? If you want to know how they view Donovan Mitchell, look at that. Cleveland thinks they have a superstar. And I understand if you have a superstar and you get bounced out the second round again, first or second round again, I understand why you would fire a head coach. But what has Donovan Mitchell showed you outside of a couple scoring bursts that makes you think he's an all-star? I obviously don't think JB Bickerstaff should have been fired. I obviously don't think that he was. I think he was put in a good position as far as a team. What I just think is there were expectations that weren't met, and a lot of those expectations, to me, couldn't have been met with this team that he has. Because again, Donovan Mitchell ain't no superstar, bro. Now, again, if you want to fire him because Darius Garland and Evan Mobley haven't grown as players since they were drafted, I get it. But if you're firing him because they haven't achieved what you think they should achieve in the playoffs, then what did you think the Cleveland Cavaliers were going to achieve? They were in a 7-game series with the Magic team. The Magic team that, if you look papered, even though they lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers, have a better future, or it looks like their future is much better than the Cavs look. And you lost to a Celtics team that a lot of people have winning it all. On top of that, Jared Allen was out. And Donovan Mitchell got hurt. So what do you expect? But hey, birds of a feather flock together, right? Poverty franchises, sometimes they just don't know how to get out of it. Hell, I'm a fan of one. I don't think the Wizards are in any position to win anytime soon. I just hope they win before, I see my maker. But it don't look like it. But hey, the Wizards do need a head coach. And JB Bickerstaff, he is available. And there you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I am trying to grow as much as I can, and I appreciate everyone that supports, everyone that's always followed, everyone that is going to follow or subscribe. I appreciate you guys. If you like the content, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe. If you got to this far and you're not subscribed, I don't know what to tell you, bro. Please subscribe. It means a lot. Also, I understand that there's some people that only listen to DSPs, which is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitch, wherever you get Pandora, wherever you get your podcast. There's some people that only listen to me there and don't really listen to or look at YouTube. I appreciate all of you guys. If you do listen on the DSPs, please subscribe. Please follow. It definitely means a lot. You know, no platform is more important than the other to me. I appreciate all you guys. So if you like the content, tell a friend to subscribe, as well as you subscribe. Also, please follow me on the socials. Follow me on TikTok. Follow me on Instagram. I post pretty much daily. You can debate with me there. You can see reels. A lot of the reels that you see on YouTube, I have to cut down to a minute. A lot of them are longer, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. If you want to see the entire reel, go to TikTok, go to Instagram. That's where you'll see it. We can go back and forth. Just keep it respectful. And I have absolutely no problem going back and forth, debating with you guys. You telling me how wrong I am, me telling you how right I think I am. It's all fun, and it really shows. And I feel like you guys, it makes me feel like, let's say, that you guys care about or care enough to listen. So I appreciate you guys. So follow the socials. Until next time, much love.